Welcome to Melanated Rising, where we inspire, uplift, and ignite Black creatives, all while changing the narratives around Blackness. What does it mean to exist Black in this world today with our many intersections? That's exactly what we explore, the challenges, the beauty, and the brilliance. Every episode is a look at what is possible when Black creatives stand in our undeniable power. I am your host, Kristen Iris.
And I'm Dr. Ruby Lathon.
Welcome to Melanated Rising. We are back for another episode, and I'm really excited to have Ruby here with us to let you know a little bit about this fabulous doctor. Dr. Ruby Lathon is a certified holistic nutritionist and inspires with a powerful story of recovering from thyroid cancer through alternative treatment focused on a whole food, plant-based diet. Dr. Lathon was featured in the hit documentary What the Health and is slated to be featured on 2 upcoming health documentaries. Dr. Lathon worked as a researcher and an award-winning engineer and now teaches others how to re-engineer their health and live disease-free. Through her organization, Roadmap to Holistic Health, Dr. Lathon hosts health conferences, workshops, and vegan cooking classes, and provides customized nutritional consultations and coaching programs. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, so excited to have you. So I start everybody with the same question. And that question for you is, what narratives around Blackness are you challenging or changing?
Oh, okay. Well, obviously I'm in the holistic health and nutrition and plant-based eating and vegan space. So I feel like I am challenging dietary patterns that are known, that are always assigned to us, that we eat badly and we eat this, bad soul food and all of that. And I'm like, vegan, Black people, African Americans, African people, people of African descent have been on the forefront of plant-based eating for a really long time. And we're just kind of getting back to our roots even more so. There's a number of people who are following this healthy lifestyle, and we're just taking it more mainstream, that it's not for other people, it's for us. It's not for, the upper class. It's not for the certain yuppie or just millennials. It's for everybody who wants to live their best life, and that's us. So we're taking it by storm, and I'm pushing it out there in the forefront to say that people who eat healthy and plant-based look like me too.
Yes, I love that. Now, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I am recently starting to shift more to plant-based, and that is primarily motivated by health issues that I have and health conditions, chronic conditions. But it does have this kind of like, well, that's for white people, or that's for like rich people, and that narrative. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring you on, because as Black people, and I'm in America, so I think as a Black person in America, and even, I'm Black American, and I'm also Black Puerto Rican. So even on my Puerto Rican side, there's like a kind of history, or like an idea of like unhealthy foods, or like really fatty foods. Like heart disease is really high amongst Puerto Ricans. And so there's this idea of like, our food is not vegan based, and that's for other people, and that's like a white people thing. And if that kind of has to change, how do we change that on a cultural level to eat more healthy? So you said that this is us returning. We're starting to like return to our roots. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I thought that was really interesting.
Sure. Because when you look at the diet that most people had in Africa, the various countries, it's mostly plant-based. It's mostly, yes, there's meat there, but the primary diet is going to be the pulses, the beans, the greens, and that type of food. When you look at what those dietary patterns are, which is why it's pretty easy to eat plant-based at an Ethiopian restaurant, for example, or other African restaurants where they have peanut stew and lentils and all these other really great foods that are already culturally, inherent to their populations. So that was the primary diet. It wasn't, yes, they were eating meat, but not large amounts like we eat today. that was more of the seasoning of the food. But the primary diet was plant-based and still is in many areas in Africa. So I see it as kind of returning to the roots. Also, even if you look at history here, when we were enslaved, a lot of the diet was primarily plant-based as well, because we weren't even allowed to have large amounts of meat. The meat was used as the seasonings for the food. So you put the ham hocks in the greens, but the main food was the greens. Everybody wasn't having a ham hock themselves, you know what I mean? Whatever that is. I don't think I've had one, but nevertheless, that it was plant-based eating enhanced with or included with some meat in there. And so the primary dishes were plants because that's what was available. And so now that we've kind of, switched it where they have the marketing so heavily to African American communities for junk food and meat-based eating, we've kind of gotten away from really how we used to eat. My mom said, when she was growing up on a farm, their own farm and garden, they mainly ate vegetarian and had meat on the weekends. So it was not a daily part of their diet, and that's how they ate. And so that wasn't because they were following this label. This is just the way that people ate. And so we've kind of gotten away from that. The more money you get, the more meat you buy, and then you start replacing the veggies with the meat. So now we're like, okay, let's get back to the veggies. Let's push the meat off the plate because we can see what it's done to our health, and the health outcomes speak for themselves, that they're not really good when we kind of reverse the way that we should be eating.
Absolutely. Now, what you said in there about what gets marketed to us and so heavily, I think that's really important because Black people in this country are typically marginalized communities. We tend to have less resources, and that's historically through systemic oppression. But when you look at like Link or food stamps and things like that, the food that you can get is crap. It's crap food.
Yeah. Processed food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they're pushing these things actually on us, which is part of the systemic oppression that keeps us unhealthy and makes it harder for us to live.
Yeah, and even when you think about the free food that's given to people, it's usually milk and cheese, those kind of things that are inflammatory. Most people of color are lactose intolerant. And they're giving us the stuff that makes you sick and definitely subsidizing the bad stuff. And so recently there's been a push to have, where you can use WIC and things at farmers markets. You can actually get fresh produce and things like that. But that was something you had to fight for, which should have been a little more obvious to begin with. So absolutely, the food that's given to people, food pantries, is usually processed, high sodium, high fat, junk food, unfortunately. So it just exacerbates the health of folks who really need the best food the most, because of the fewer resources. So and the marketing is very deliberate, especially younger marketing to kids and things like that. And the billboards and all that. So it's like, we can get kids to latch on to fast food and burgers and McDonald's by the age of 5, then they're a customer for life. So there's a lot of marketing to young kids so that they will continue to eat there and at those places that are very unhealthy forever, and basically create this addiction to it. And then, I always mention that, in a lot of poorer communities, you'll see your fast food places, and then right next door in the neighborhood, you'll see a dialysis center. And I'm like, if you just stop and think about it, it's because this fast food place is so accessible to you that you'll end up going into this dialysis center soon. It's like they're almost like telling you, you go here, you're going to end up here, but we're not picking up on that message. You eat here, you're going to end up in this dialysis center, but a lot of people just don't get that. And so, when you look at wealthy communities, there are no dialysis centers or fast food places in their community. What you'll see is a juice bar, a healthy Whole Foods, or a Wegmans, or 4 or 5 places where I can get a great salad. You'll see all of that, but you will not see a McDonald's in Bel Air right on the corner. You know what I mean? Or a takeout place that no one who even works there eats. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's like so frustrating that
Mm-hmm.
because these are things that we don't even notice. We're constantly being fed
Mm-hmm.
these messages and directed in a certain way, even like within our communities with what's there, and we don't even see it. So it's like this extra work to create a change,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to build people's awareness in what needs to change before they can even do that.
Right, right. And so what they just grow up thinking is normal, getting food from corner stores that have no produce or the worst produce ever. This is where you're getting your primary food, which is not healthy food, it's processed junk. And then the grocery stores often have really bad produce and things like that. So it's a setup for failure in general. But, I don't like to leave it there, because where there's a will, there's a way that you can, once you can kind of get yourself out of that system and make the healthiest choices that you
Mhm.
can. But we do have to recognize the systemic problem of creating a poor and sick underclass that other people profit from.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so important. That's
Yeah, so
exactly what's
it's
going
like
on.
an intentional design, because it's an easy target. They're poor, they don't have access to this. So we'll give them the worst food, which will put them in a system that we've set up that will make us money through insurance and medications and things like that. So there are a lot of people really profiting off of the illness. And so people are spending their few dollars at these, buying garbage food that's being marketed to them and that's in their neighborhood, so that other people can sit back and wait for them to enter the sick care system and then make billions off of them in that way.
Wow, that is so, I'm so glad that you were able to put that in such a concise way, because it's something that I've become more aware of but didn't know how to explain, because I don't do what
Mm-hmm.
you do. So tell us more about your story, how you healed you had thyroid cancer and how you healed that.
Sure. So I was, surprisingly diagnosed back in 2007 through just a exam. Thought we should take a look at the thyroid. It felt large. So, and did a biopsy and found cancer. So I was really shocked, because I thought I was eating pretty healthy, living pretty healthy, with exercise and all that. So I just decided that I was going to look at alternative or natural treatment, because it just didn't sit well with me to take out a working organ and have to be on medication forever. I never liked taking any kind of medication, and I don't like being dependent upon outside things like that. So I'm like, I think I'm going to, just figure it out, because I had heard about other people healing themselves. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, there's obviously a way. So let me figure out what that is, and just started researching, and decided I was going to go the natural route with this, because I felt like my body could heal itself if we could figure out maybe what the cause was and how to just figure out how does the body heal. So it was really a square one kind of start. I just started researching and read a lot about diet and plant-based diets and the ability to reverse cancer and reverse all these chronic diseases that we think are hereditary, like diabetes and heart disease and high cholesterol and all these things. That I also thought was hereditary, because they always ask you about it. So it's just the misinformation of America is why people think that disease is just random, and when it's really not. It's like, people think, oh, if it runs in my family, then I'm probably going to get it. Or you just get struck with something out of the blue. Yeah, that happens sometimes, but that's not the majority of cases. So when I started reading that, I decided to switch my diet, get rid of, all the processed food, stopped using like the microwave, which kind of kills the food, and just changed everything. Started, taking supplements that are designed to boost your immune system, came up with a nutrition plan, did some cleanses, started juicing, just basically changed my entire life, even quit my job because it was stressing me out.
Ooh,
And a year later, I was cured, healed. It was gone, remission, whatever you want to call it. I call it healed,
okay.
um, but it was gone. So the cancer had reversed itself. I no longer had cancer. We did another biopsy, all nodules, my thyroid. There was nothing there anymore. So I was no longer even classified as a cancer patient. So I was overjoyed. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me that you could, heal something as big as cancer with diet and mindset, really. That, people need to know this. And I just wanted to start a different career. Wasn't sure what I was going to do, but this kind of organically grew out of that to start helping other people do the same thing. So to figure it out without having to start from square one, and help to get on the preventive side of things, because prevention is so much easier than reversing something. So, so if we could, help people to figure out how to get healthy and stay that way, before problems start, then that's great. But if you do end up, with an illness, there's hope, because the body can heal itself when you figure out what it needs. And mostly it needs healthy, pure, unadulterated food, mostly plant foods, and rest and positive attitudes and environments.
Mm. Wow. That's incredible, because people don't really think about, like you said, they don't think about being able to reverse these conditions. Like once you have it, you think and I'm kind of in that mindset right now for myself with, like, I have 2 autoimmune conditions. I have ulcerative colitis and I have ankylosing spondylitis that I was just recently in the last couple of months diagnosed with. And I was like, wow, that explains 4 years of having back pain, where it's not that I'm imbalanced or I injured myself or I was doing too much martial arts. It's, I have an actual spinal condition. So it is kind of, even in my head, it's like, can I really reverse this? Like, it's been triggered. Can I actually heal it? Is it now that my immune system flares up and it's like hyperactive in this way, is that something that can even really be healed, or do I just always have to live with it? And
right. And that's the first step. I mean, number one, it's hard to think that it can be, because almost every condition that people if you look it up, it'll say there's no cure. There's no cure. There's no cure. It's like there's no cure for anything.
No cure. It's
so why are we marching for the cure? Why are we marching for the cure? Why are we spending billions of dollars on the cure if there is no cure? How can you definitively say there is no cure? It's like you're just putting out false information. We haven't found it yet, maybe, let's say that, but don't say there is no cure and take away people's hope, because there is cure for a lot of things. People have been healed of ulcerative colitis for sure. So that's reversible. I'm not really familiar with the other thing that you mentioned, but, I had a good friend who worked with me who said, anything you can get, you can unget. If you got it, you can unget it. So I was like, she's like, just start with that premise, that if you get it, it wasn't always there. Something developed, something triggered, something caused it. You can undo it. And that's the beauty of the body, is that when you give it what it needs, it does. It's ready to heal. It's designed to heal. That's what the immune system is there waiting to do. So it's just waiting for you to move out of the way, stop giving it garbage, and give it some healing stuff, and it'll do its job. So everybody's different. I'm not saying anything in the world you get, it's going to be gone if you change to plant-based. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the body can heal itself. And if you figure out, starting with nutrition, what those primary components are, at the very least, it's going to improve. And in most cases, it's going to be reversed.
See, so what about because I totally believe that's why I'm shifting into plant-based eating. But you said, like, if you can get it, then if you can get it, you can unget it. Like if
right.
reverse it. But what about things where they do talk about genetics, or like they told me that I have certain DNA markers for having inflammatory conditions? I don't really know what that means, to be honest, but it's like, if I have a DNA marker, does that mean that I was just predisposed, or that this is that can't go away, or what is
So genetics do play a role in our overall health, but generally, from my understanding, is that how genetics play a role is that if you get sick, it kind of lets you know how you're probably going to get sick. It doesn't mean you're going to get this. So if you have a DNA marker for inflammatory conditions, then that means if you kind of follow the standard American diet and not really paying attention to what's going in, then you will probably get sick in this way with an inflammatory issue. So it doesn't so it's easier to trigger it because that's what your DNA has, but it doesn't mean you're going to get that. If you're following a more of an anti-inflammatory diet for most of your life, it might not have ever been turned on. So basically genetics say if you get sick, this is probably how you're going to get sick. If you follow the basic patterns of your relatives, you're going to get sick how they got sick. That's what the family pattern says, but it doesn't say you're going to get sick. It's like you can see, very marked differences between family members, brothers and sisters who follow, let's say, a very clean, mostly plant-based diet versus those who follow a standard American diet. Those who follow standard American will have the, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, blah, 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 all that stuff, and those who don't are, 20, 25 pounds slimmer, no issues, no medications. So I've seen this in the same families over and over. So if it was, a genetic thing, then it wouldn't matter what you did, but it does matter. So it really tells you, here's how you're going to get sick if you follow the same habits, dietary patterns, and lifestyle of your family.
Okay.
So that's what it tells us. It tells us how, but it's not a destiny.
Okay. I like that. I like that you clarified that, because that almost okay. So when they say like you have certain DNA markers, it almost feels like disempowering, like, oh, so this is going to happen.
It would almost be better that you didn't know that, because your mind is so powerful in controlling these things. If you tell someone they're going to get sick, they're probably going to get sick. If you believe it, what you believe, you kind of manifest in your life. So, and this happens many times when doctors tell people, oh, you have 3 months to live. There's no way they could know that. But people internalize it, and their internal clock says, we got 3 months. So it's going to happen, and it happens. But those who defy it and say, no, not today, not me, then it doesn't happen for them. So there have been many people who've defied the 3 months to live, the 2 month or whatever, things like that, because they just rejected it. They rejected it. And it's the same with our patterns. You get so ingrained with thinking that disease is inevitable because every time you go to the doctor, they're asking you your family history of who has this, who has this, who has this. Oh, well, let's check for that, which is not a bad thing to check for it, but we have to put the caveat, doesn't mean you're going to get this. If you follow the standard American way of living, yes, you probably will. So if they're working under that premise, okay. But there's a lot you can do to avoid it. Tons you can do to avoid it.
Yes, absolutely. And even the way that you phrase it about the DNA markers don't say you'll get it. It just says, if you get sick, this is likely how. Even just the way you phrase that felt more empowering. It was almost like a little bit of a guide of like, oh, here's something to be aware of so that like if something's coming up, this could be it. It doesn't mean it is, but it could be it. Almost like it gives you a little bit more of a guide. So even just that little shift felt more empowering for me in terms of like, oh, now I know what's showing up on the map. It doesn't mean that's the direction it has to go. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Because the studies, research shows that only about 10% of disease is caused by genetics.
Okay.
Only about 10%. So that's like 90% in your control.
Yes.
Of your, 90% of the people have complete control over that. So it's not as, there are hereditary diseases, so we're not discounting that, but that's in the 10% or less fall into that category.
Okay. So you mentioned the standard American diet and standard American lifestyle. Can you just break that? I mean, I think we all kind of know what it is, but just break it down so that people can kind of understand like, oh, am I living that? Am I not living that?
Right. It's the SAD lifestyle, since it stands for Standard American Diet. So it's adequately, correctly named. But basically it is kind of just buying into the mainstream everything of what is marketed to you and believing, okay, I'm going a little deeper than the diet, because it's like, it's the standard American living.
Yeah, like not exercising.
Or the government really protects you and the FDA does everything in your best interest and they're not going to put anything harmful on the market, or you can trust everything your doctor says, or everything that's on the TV has been tested by the FDA and so it's safe to consume. No, it's like most of what's marketed to you on television is straight garbage. And most people are buying it's food full of food coloring, saturated fat, cholesterol, milk products. Milk doesn't do the body good. That's a marketing lie. All of that. So when you buy into all of the marketing that people are spending billions of dollars, that's obviously working. So then you go to the store and then you buy your Doritos and you buy your Sprite. And then if you're trying to eat healthy, you might buy some salad. And then you go and buy your meat, lean meat, because that's what's supposed to be good, and your milk. That's the standard American diet, that you have been sold this lie that you can eat like this and everything's going to be okay. So you're eating a high saturated fat, high cholesterol way of living. You're eating lots of processed stuff. You're eating at chain restaurants and fast food places regularly. That's the standard American diet. And then, maybe you'll do low fat dairy because you heard it's not good to eat too much. So, that kind of thing. Or let me take some of this green powder with my, shake or something. You bought into the standard American living that you can just add a little magic powder and still eat like garbage and be okay. And exercise doesn't make that big of a difference, So that's pretty much it. And it shows. This is why obesity rates are, unfortunately for African Americans, are 70% and upwards for women, and over 50% for men. African American community, for the general population, it's like 40 to 60%. So the standard American diet is doing its job of creating a lot of sick people, because obesity is usually the underlying trigger for a lot of diseases. So it's like you just wait for people to get overweight, and then you're going to get hypertension, high cholesterol, and then kidney problems, diabetes, and then the train just keeps on going.
Wow. Now, something you said about the standard American lifestyle is like believing that the government's got your best interest and the FDA. Now, What the Health? This is how I came across you, was watching What the Health, and the stuff in that documentary about like the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and like who sponsors them, who gives them money, and it's like beef and dairy, and that the research says these things are actually not good for us. And people are going to these sites looking for recipes and resources and seeing like,
I know.
The beef whatever and your burrito, and it's like, but this stuff is actually really bad for you, and they don't even realize it because they're trusting these resources.
Exactly. I've had people.
Terrifying.
It's terrible. I mean, people have actually had like anal cancer, colon cancer, and then after their surgery, they're given like sloppy joes in the hospital and steak. I'm like,
oh my God,
come on. And even the patients themselves are saying, is this healthy for me to eat? Is that even a good first meal after a surgery? I'm like, it's like so insane. The insanity of it is just like off the charts. And then when you look behind, so we have the facts that the reason these, quote, societies and research organizations are pushing this is because they're getting money from the meat and dairy lobby and the pharmaceuticals. So they're saying, the American Cancer Society and all this is going to have beef bourguignon and all kinds of garbage and steak on their thing, when there's a direct link between those meats and cancer. Makes no sense. And then we have the Susan G. Komen partnering with KFC and other dairy products for breast cancer. When those things, dairy has a direct correlation with that. Estrogen forming foods like chicken has a direct correlation. Fried food has a direct correlation, maybe not direct, but it has a very strong correlation with these illnesses. So it's like, part of it is they're just taking the money. And then the other part is there a more sinister program that's happening here? Because you have, pharmaceuticals that actually invest in fast food and vice versa. So it's like, okay, I mean, it's not that hard to make the dots, connect the dots. If we get people to eat this, then they're going to need, cholesterol or all these statins in a minute. So let me invest over here to create the problem, and then I'll come over here and, quote, solve the problem.
Oh
So
my
I'm going
gosh, that
to
makes me sick.
create the problem by marketing this, and then I'm going to solve the problem that's going to make me billions. And you're never going to get well. You're going to get chronically worse. And then I'm going to make money off the 10 other medications that you're going to have to add to solve the first problem. And nobody cares that you're suffering in the process. So yeah, these organizations have been corrupt. They're often, FDA often has people from the ag industry and other things that are going to go back to that industry after they serve their time on the FDA. So and the USDA, the same thing. So the rules are not made by just caring, pencil pushers in the government. No, they're made by people who have friends who are going to make billions off of it. And then when I give up my term, I'm going to go and make billions off of how I set you up to make billions. So I'm going to get some of that back. So it is corrupt. The system is completely corrupt. And we know that companies often do a trade-off analysis when they do medications, for example. Oh, we know we'll probably get sued eventually, or 20,000 people are going to die, but how much will it cost to pay those people off? Are we going to, in lawsuits, they'll do a benefit cost analysis. If we're going to lose maybe 15 million in lawsuits, but we're going to make 5 billion, it's worth those 20,000 people dying. This is the kind of benefit cost analysis that they do, knowing that people are going to die from these medications, but putting it out there anyway and just waiting for the lawsuits to come because they can afford it, because they've made so much money. So, to think that when people say, I'll recommend maybe a supplement or something, has that FDA regulated? I'm like, you'd probably be better off that it's not. Because you know how many people die from taking medications correctly each year? It's in the hundreds of thousands that people die from taking pharmaceutical prescribed medications in the correct format, not misusing or mislabeled. People are dying from taking medications every year in the hundreds of thousands. So I'm like, but you're afraid of some vitamin C excess. Like nobody's dying from taking too much vitamin C, but people have died from taking FDA-approved pharmaceutical drugs prescribed correctly by your doctor.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. So the movie definitely helped expose that. And those are things that I knew. So I was excited to be a part of a movie that was going to bring that information to the masses, because people want to act like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're this, you're nuts. Where's your tin hat because you don't trust the FDA? I'm like, oh, I'm crazy because I don't trust the FDA.
It's like, it's actually not conspiracy. It's factually, it is.
I know. And so this helped bring that information to the mainstream so people understand the systems that are at work and that are basically trading your life for dollars. And so we have to just be smarter than that. And my mission is just to kind of help pull people out of the matrix, basically, of the lies that we live in, and say there is a better way. And we don't have to be a statistic. Just because I'm Black doesn't mean I'm going to be poor and sick. It does not mean I'm going to be diabetic. It does not mean I'm going to be obese. It does not mean I'm going to be on 5 medications, because I get to control what's on my plate. No matter what I have to do to make it happen, I get to control what's on my plate. So I'm not going to buy into your lies. I am smarter than that, and I'm going to live a healthy life because I get to choose that. So it's an act of revolution that I'm not falling for your garbage, your lies, your marketing, your plan. You have to find another way to make money, and not off of the backs of sick and dying people.
Ooh, yes. Oh my gosh, there was so much there. I don't even know where to go from there. So as someone who, like, for me, I was a proud omnivore. Okay. People be like, are you vegetarian? I'm like, hell no, I am not vegetarian. I eat meat. I eat all the meat. Some more meat,
Yeah.
And I used to, like, pride myself on having an ironclad stomach, and now I definitely don't, because I have a digestive condition. I have an autoimmune condition that affects my digestive system. So for me, it was like, I mean, I'm still shifting. I'm still like, all right, I'm eating more plant-based. I shifted away from, like, not eating as much, like, not that I never have steak, but like I wasn't eating as much chicken. I was eating more like fish. And so it's been like a gradual process, but I was very like hardcore. I can eat whatever I want. I'm fine. I'm going to eat
Right.
everything. And I still eat pretty healthy. And now like on this side of it, I'm like, I mean, I guess I wasn't eating horrible, but I wasn't eating
Right.
like as good as I like. What I thought was good was not as good as it should have
Yeah, and you'll find
been.
that there are levels. There are levels to healthy eating. We're so far off from it that step one is, I was like, as you grow and develop, you realize, just shopping at the regular grocery store really isn't the place to be. Most of it is garbage food. Most of the processed food has, food coloring, high fructose corn syrup,
Yeah.
MSG, hydrogenated fats, trans fats, all those things that directly affect your gut health and your mental health as well. So it's like, just starting to shop at different places. And then even at the health food store, kind of staying away from the healthy processed stuff and going more toward fresh food, which means you have to prepare more food for yourself, which is, a challenge for some people, but that's really the way to go. So there are definitely levels to healthy eating. So it's like, we want to get the dairy off the plate for starters, because we're not a baby cow. So it causes us to grow fat and sick when we eat dairy products, and cheese is just concentrated dairy, some milk, so, we start with that. We start with getting the inflammatory foods out and replacing it with, I always tell people, let's start with just eating half the amount of meat you're eating now, whatever you're eating, just half of it. And then let's start doing meals that don't have meat, because the idea that we need meat 3 times a day is insane. Nobody needs that much protein. Generally, the standard American diet gets about 2 to 3 times more protein than we need. And most of us aren't jogging a couple of miles a day to burn it off. And you can burn off calories, but you can't burn off saturated fat and cholesterol. That has to come out through plant foods that help get it out of your system. So there's a lot, that we can do, but, so there are levels to it. So let's cut the dairy, period. We're not a cow, so we don't need the growth hormones and all the stuff that comes in that's meant to make a baby cow go from, very small to a couple of 100 pounds in 6 months. But we can
Especially
see,
with all the extra stuff they put in it and all like
the growth hormones. Yeah, and the thing is, it already has an enormous amount of growth hormones because it's milk. It's supposed to have growth hormone naturally to make the baby calf grow into a cow. So then you add the additional growth hormones to the cow to make it grow faster and all that. So you have that problem. You have the antibiotics problem. You have a lot of things that you're just getting that are very toxic to the body. And the evidence is there. The obesity epidemic is clear that the standard American diet is not working for America, period. So, we can just stop with it and stop making people feel like they're doing something so wrong. It's just they're eating the wrong processed garbage, and when you stop eating processed food and overabundance of meat, then you're going to see results pretty quickly. So I say, start having meatless meals at least once a day at a minimum, and then start with some meatless days if it's Monday. And then when you are eating meat, just go with half the amount and replace that with greens, because that fiber, most Americans of the standard American diet are deficient in fiber. Yep. And fiber is what binds with free radicals that stop cancer and that age you and all that, stop all these other diseases. Fiber gets the free radicals out of the system. It gets the excess hormones out of the system. So what we have is people are eating way too much hormone-rich food, and that has zero fiber. Meat and dairy have no fiber, and not enough of the things that heal, so the balance is off. So when you start eating more fiber, it'll start taking some of that out of the system.
It's like scrubbing your insides.
Exactly. It's exactly what it's doing. And most of us are just loading up on stuff that has no fiber, so it sits there a lot longer, takes longer to get through the system, and causes problems.
Let's talk protein just for a second, because something that you mentioned, it's said in the documentary as well, that people are like, oh, but where am I going to get my protein, and how am I going to get my protein? And it's one thing that they said, and that you said, is like, you don't actually need that much protein. Like what you're eating is too much already. And so kind of bust this myth about like how we have to do all these things for all this extra protein. Like, you get protein in a lot of things. Like, I get a lot of protein in my black beans and a lot of fiber.
Exactly.
A lot of
So
fiber.
one of my biggest pet peeves is when people interchange the word protein and meat. So what
Yes.
proteins are we having today? I'm like, eye roll, because every fruit and vegetable has protein in it. Okay, just smaller amounts. You have the larger amounts in your beans, nuts, and seeds, and whole grains. So when somebody says, what protein are we having? It's like food. That's what we're having. All food has protein in it for starters. But the reason everybody's so concerned about protein and not fiber is because there's a meat lobby and there's not a very big vegetable lobby, okay? Because it's a lot easier. You have a finite number of meat sources, beef, pork, chicken, basically. That's going to be the standard. So you have very large lobbies that control that and are very powerful. But you have like thousands of vegetables, so there's no big vegetable lobby that's saying, let's inform people about fiber. You don't have that because it's too dispersed. So, but you do have a meat lobby, so they're like, oh, the best thing about our product is protein, but let's not talk about all the negatives of it and what it doesn't have, like the overabundance of antioxidants that vegetables have that meat doesn't have, and the fiber that's going to heal you, and those kind of things. So we know about protein because the meat lobby has done a really great job of making you aware that protein is an important macronutrient. Okay, but there's several others, so it's just been a marketing, coup that we are so aware of our protein needs when we're eating way too much. So that's why everybody's so sensitive about it, because we've been marketed to interchange to think that meat equals protein, when that's really not the case. Protein equals amino acids, which happens to be in meat. It also happens to be in beans, nuts, seeds, and everything else. And when you eat a well-rounded diet, you get plenty of it. When you eat not processed food, when you eat whole grains instead of processed grains, you get protein. When you eat nuts and seeds, you get protein. When you eat peanut butter, almond butter, you're going to get protein. So those kind of things, it's there. So we've just been marketed to think we need way more than we need. We need about 50 grams for the average person a day, and most people are getting twice and some 3 times that because they're eating so much. And it's like, most people, there's almost no such thing as protein deficiency when you're eating enough food, period. Usually that only occurs when you're just not getting enough calories. But we have
like calorie restricted diets.
Yes, then you could be not getting enough protein. But if you're eating a well-rounded diet, you're getting enough. If you're a athlete, you could probably bump that up some because you're going to burn that off. Yes, so you can get a little more protein. You still don't need 2 or 3 times, but unless you're bodybuilding.
A little more of everything, actually.
Yeah, exactly. You need more of everything. So bodybuilders and athletes need more. Most of us who are going at the computer 8 hours a day and maybe doing Zumba 3 times or 2 times a week do not need that much protein. Okay, so we could take it down a bit, and our waistlines would show that when we take down the protein. We start the animal protein, you just start naturally losing weight, which is why most people, when switch to a plant-based diet, they lose pounds like immediately without being food deprived, because the calorie count just naturally goes down.
Yeah,
and they have more energy.
2 weeks.
Yeah, so people have more energy. Right. So I'm like, these folks are eating 2 and 3 times the amount of protein they need. How's your energy level? Because protein is supposed to equal energy. Food is supposed to equal energy. Calories, energy. So if your calories are making you lethargic and tired and sleepy, then you didn't eat the right calories. And most of the times when you're eating plant-based whole foods, you have energy. You have more energy, clarity of thought, those kind of things. So the energy is there. So that's really how you kind of gauge that. It's possible not to eat enough protein, but that's generally not the problem in America. And it doesn't happen with just because you went on a plant-based diet. Now, if you went on a plant-based juice fast, or which you can do for, healing purposes and things like that, but not long-term, or you're just not eating enough, yeah, you can go too low. But generally a well-rounded diet, you're going to be fine. Better off, actually.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I will say that in the last 2 weeks ago, I was actually in the hospital um, with a flare up of some of my
Mm-hmm.
conditions, and because they told me to eat certain foods and eat like mostly soft foods and carbs and go easy
Processed, yeah.
on, yeah, like
Right.
easy on the fat and
Mm-hmm.
the protein. So I haven't had any. I mean, I had eggs the other day. That was it. But I haven't
Mm-hmm.
had any meat. I haven't had any chicken or steak
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. And my weight's dry. And I'm not trying to lose weight. I want to gain some weight, but
Mm-hmm.
like my weight is dropping and I'm not trying. And so like it
Right.
does change and it changes fast. But even in that this little bit of time where I'm like healing my pancreas and my stomach right now, I'm
Mm-hmm.
noticing a shift in the foods, not just the foods that I'm eating, but like the way that I feel. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have pretty good energy. Like I have,
Right.
for
Right.
someone who was just in the hospital, just in the ER,
Right.
and overnight in the
Yeah.
hospital, like I've got pretty good energy.
People,
I feel like
yeah.
and when I eat certain foods, like the Sunday night, I was at my friend's and I was watching the finale of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And
We
I was there and I was
want to talk
eating.
about
I know, my God, it was so. Anyways, it's like maybe a
that.
whole separate episode.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I was eating these like Oreo, not Oreos. Oreos are vegan. That doesn't mean they're good for you guys.
They are vegan
But
accidentally. Yeah.
but I was eating. It was like Oreo brand, and it was like I don't know, peanut butter something, peanut butter cake, whatever. And I think I had four, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, I feel good. Like I didn't feel sick. I just
Yeah.
felt like heavy, and I felt like it
Not
was
that
just like
good. Yeah, your body
stuck in my
becomes
stomach. My body was like, so what we're not going to do is eat another one of those. You're going to stop and then you're going to go
exactly
eat a vegetable. Like my
right.
body
Right.
has already, it knows the difference. And like, I'm starting to feel that difference, and I can recognize it when I've been eating mostly like plant-based or like even whole foods, not like processed and shaped into third generation of something.
Hmm.
Like I can notice the difference in the way my body feels and the way my body operates when I eat something that's really processed, just like.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and your body gets more sensitive to it because what happens is when you keep assaulting it with garbage, it just the signals get dulled. They're like, okay, this is what we're doing. There's no need to ring the alarm because we're getting more of this at the next meal and the next meal and the next meal. But when you clean it out and start eating healthy and then you put garbage in, then it's like, hey, ho, wait up. And then you start feeling bad and then you might have a reaction to it or something. Then you're like, whoa, I used to be able to eat this. No, but your body's like, yeah, but we didn't want it. And now that you stopped, we're not just going to go back without a fight. So
We're
it
not
rings
giving
the
in.
alarm. Right. So stuff you used to be able to eat, you can't anymore. And like stuff that I used to eat, if I eat it now, I'll get an immediate headache. Just like that.
Oh,
If I eat processed sugar, I will get a headache within like 10 minutes because my body is sensitive to it. So I don't eat that anymore. And so your taste buds change, your body becomes more sensitive because it's like, look, we cleaned out. It's like when you clean out your apartment, you just don't start junking it up again. You get
yeah.
more sensitive to stuff. You're like, wait, put that away. And you're
Yep.
like, well, yesterday it was junky in here, but today it's clean. So we're not going to go back. That's exactly what's happening to your body. It's like, we've cleaned it out. Now hold up here. We're not going down this road without a fight. You keep assaulting it, it'll go ahead and be like, oh, okay, fine, and turn off the alarm. But this is what happens, which is the good thing is that when you adapt, your taste buds adapt, your cravings adapt and everything. So you're not constantly for the rest of your life craving garbage food. When you give it better food, it starts craving better food.
Yes. And that's like one of the last thing that I want you to touch on is like, how do we deal with like cravings and changing our relationship to food, especially as like Black people, where food is such an important part of like our culture and can be an important part of like family and how we show love and like these long traditions of how you make certain foods. How do we start changing that and create like making maybe, I don't know, similar foods but with different ingredients, or like how do we
Yeah,
start
absolutely.
changing
Yeah,
that?
so I mean, I've done that. My own family has taken my mom's recipes and quote veganized them because I really like them and just replaced the milk or the cheese or meat, whatever it is, and made vegan versions of them. And then because I don't feel good serving people food that I wouldn't eat that I know is unhealthy. So it's like if you want to show love, I know that we show it through our, mac and cheese and our this and our that. But when we have to think about what nourishes the body versus what's tearing down the body, and that what's going in your body actually predicts how long you're going to live and how well you're going to live, then we start thinking about it in a different way. I'm like, I can't deep fry this stuff and just give it to my family because it tastes good. I don't feel good about that, because with every bite, you're degrading their health. So when you have to, first shift your thinking about what nourishment is, okay, and really just look at it differently. And then find really good recipes that you can change and flip and pass back to them. This is better now. As long as it tastes good, people really don't care that it has meat or not. Now you have the people who are going to fight with you. I need my meat. I need whatever. What they will come along. I don't fight with people about that. Fine. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But you know what happens eventually when they see how well you're living, how healthy you look, how much younger you look, how good you look, how vibrant you are, then they're like, well, maybe I should, what diet are you doing? Maybe I should look into what she's doing, or now that they're sick and they're like, well, maybe I ought to try this. It always comes back around. The biggest opposers always come back around later, because those people who are opposing it are just trying to figure out how to do it. And at the moment, they don't know how they can make that transition. So they're putting up a big, stop sign, but they're really thinking, I got to figure this out. So eventually they come back around to it. So my approach is just to make food that tastes good, not taste good for a vegan, but just taste good, period. And then people like it. And then if it's good food, it's just food. And I try not to preach to people about diet, especially while they're eating. It's like the worst time. So people are always like, oh, are you going to say something about my plate? I'm like, we're eating. This is like the worst time to talk about dietary changes while you're eating your fried chicken. I'm not going to do it. So we're going to talk about that when you're comfortable and ready and not defensive, about how you can maybe have some buffalo cauliflower wings that you can eat the whole plate for under the calories of 3 of those, chicken wings, and not feel deprived. So
I gotta say, I don't know if I could do with the cauliflower wings, but that's okay. I could do cauliflower with other things, but I just don't, like, of all the things I'm gonna do, I just don't want to dress cauliflower up as chicken. I'd rather
you don't even have to call it that. We could just call it cauliflower bites.
Yeah, I like that better. I like that better. I don't like, I'm like, if I, because my
sometimes the names
too, and it's like the name makes a difference.
It does. Sometimes it throws it off when you try to mimic stuff too much. It's like, let's just make good food and just not even try to mimic, because then people are set up for, this doesn't taste like chicken. Of course it doesn't. It's cauliflower.
Yes, exactly. So my mom, like, last weekend or something, she made like veggie burgers, right? So, and I like veggie burgers, and I don't look for a veggie burger to be a burger. I look for it to be a veggie burger. Like, I like the way it tastes. And she's like, well, I'm putting vegan cheese on mine. I'm like, Mom, it's not cheese. I'm like, it has a weird consistency, okay? Like, I don't know. And she goes, well, don't think of it as cheese. Just think of it as another condiment. And I was like, I can do that. And so she put it on. I was like, this isn't cheese. It's just another condiment. And like, it was so I that one shift, because I'm like, I don't like pretending that something is cheese, that it's not. I don't want to pretend that something's chicken when it's not. How about I just eat whatever it is,
Yeah, I hear you.
We were eating mushrooms. She's like, it's kind of meaty. And I'm like, Mom, it tastes like a mushroom. It's what it tastes like. It doesn't taste like.
This is true. People always say that about
mushroom to taste like
mushroom.
I just want it to taste like a mushroom. Like, I can eat a mushroom.
I agree with you on that. I agree. Because I was like, this doesn't taste like beef in any form.
Exactly.
Or a mushroom
like, no,
is not.
I'm like, Mom, you don't have to trick me. I know it's a mushroom. I like mushrooms. It's just let it be a mushroom. But,
Yeah.
So it's like that.
It can't create a barrier. Yes. For some people, it's like a cue of, this is how you replace it. So we're going to call it something similar. Yeah, but I get your point. Because it can be. It can be a turn off.
Because they're going to eat and be like, this tastes like a mushroom. It doesn't taste like beef. I'm like, you're right. It doesn't, because it's not.
Right. Like, although my chickpea tuna mash does, a lot of people say it tastes like tuna.
Okay. All right.
But it's because you put dulse in it, which is seaweed, which gives it a fish flavor. But I have sometimes played around with not using the names to so it doesn't throw people off, because you don't want to set up a false expectation.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I get it. So we could just call it something else. Our chickpea spread.
You know, and I think that that
Yeah.
mindset shift helps, but you know, it is like we get really attached to our foods and like, no, I need my steak, or I need my chicken.
Right.
Like you're used to the flavor or the texture and things like that. And
Exactly.
you can't necessarily like flavor you can kind of replace, you know, but like texture
Yeah.
can be a little bit trickier. And so I think it just takes like time. I don't know. I'm still working with it. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I still want to
It's a
eat my chicken, but
transition.
it is like, all
Right.
right, let's like start with little things, like you said, like, you know, go down to one meatless meal and then a couple of
Yeah.
meatless days and start building up to it.
Yeah. And then
And
make
not
sure
just
you're,
meatless, but in changing just
yeah.
different foods.
And just make sure you like what you're eating that's meatless, not something you're like choking down. Make sure you really
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. And
And
there
it makes
are
it
a lot of like
easier.
really good, tasty foods. And I've been playing a lot, and that's something that I would say, you know, as a total non-expert and new person to this, is like have fun with your food. You know, play with different
Hmm.
things. Like last night I was like, all right, I got black beans and I got, ooh, I forgot about these green onions and I'm gonna cut up this mango. And like I actually put it all in a pan and I was like, this is really good. This goes really well together.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make the same thing today
exactly.
because it was really tasty. You know, so it's just like let yourself have fun with food and exploring food. And when you do kind of get adventurous and explore different flavors, then it's not about like replicating the other things, and it's not
Right.
about like, okay, well, how do I get this other thing? It's now I'm playing, and I'm exploring new things, and then you discover new things that you like, and you don't even have to necessarily like feed the other craving as much, and
Right. Right.
it gets fun.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
uh,
It's a process. So it's finding good substitutes and just changing your mental mindset about it, of what's really healthy and what's going to nourish your body the best.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of this knowledge. This is, I think, such an important conversation because there is such a need for better health in our community, especially the ways that we get marketed to and the ways
Hmm.
that really society is trying to drive us to be poor and sick because
Hmm.
other people can make money off of us. So this is such a powerful and important conversation. Tell people where they can find you.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, you can find me first at my website, which is my name, rubylathan.com. So that's first, and there's a lot of information there and recipes and videos, all of that. You can also find me on social media, all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, all that with my name, Ruby Lathan. That's RUBYLATHON. Um, and connect with me there. You know, I do consultations all over the country, you know, if you're not in the DC area, I do that via Skype or, you know, Facebook, and not Facebook, but FaceTime, that kind of thing. So anyway, you can connect with me. We do a Monday night wellness call that's free, that people can ask questions every Monday night, myself and a physician. So that's a free resource for people to get connected to other folks who are trying to live the healthy lifestyle and come out of the matrix and, you know, and just see what's on the other side. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Yes, please go connect with her, learn something. Our health, you guys, this is one of the ways that we thrive, is to have better health. And that is where we create change on a generational level that's going to ripple through to the next people who are after us and their descendants and their descendants. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
You're welcome.
Another episode and another fabulous conversation done for you guys. I hope you go and connect with Dr. Ruby Lathan. She's amazing. And I encourage and invite you to join me on this adventure towards more plant-based eating. It's actually been a lot of fun, very eye-opening, and has really helped me out in my health. So I encourage you to give it a try, even if it's just a little step here, a little step there. Now, before you go, I want to let you know about my program, my fall program, From Oreo to Empowered. It is an 8-week small group program for Black creatives who were told that they weren't Black enough, or called an Oreo, or had their Blackness policed or challenged in some way, because the damages of those messages go really deep and stretch into all areas of our lives in ways that we don't even realize. So we're going to be dismantling it, healing it, and you will be stepping into your amazing Black creative power so that you can have a powerful impact with whatever work it is that you are putting in the world. Go check it out. There are 2 tiers to choose from, and I do offer scholarships for tier 1, which is the small group coaching element. You can go to kristeniris.com/Oreo. There will be a link in the description of this episode where you can go and click and check it out. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe where you listen so that you get new episodes, and please rate and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, because it is going to help others find the show and get in on these conversations. And I also want to let you know that I am going to be bringing some new things to the podcast, so you definitely do want to subscribe wherever you listen. I'm going to be doing mini-sodes. I'm playing with some other things that I might be bringing to the show that will be between the, main full-length episodes, the full-length guest and full-length solo episodes that you get from me. I'm going to be tossing in some other things as well. And those things are really only going to be available on the platforms wherever it is that you subscribe. So you definitely want to subscribe so that you know when those episodes, those little mini-sodes or bonuses come up. Because I also have moved Melanated Rising to a new home on the web, and that is on my own website. You can go to kristeniris.com/Melanated Rising, where you can go. It has the links to all the different places that you can subscribe. It has all of the main episodes, so the full-length episodes will be there and will continue to be showing up there. But the bonus episodes will not. That's why I said you do have to subscribe wherever you listen. So go check it out, kristeniris.com/Melanated Rising. And if you'd like to support the production of the show, you can make a donation right on that page, either a single amount, a one-time payment, or you can do a recurring amount, whatever works for you. But any amount that you give is greatly appreciated and does help me continue to produce this show and bring you more content and more guests. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Melanated Rising. Always remember to stand in your Black creative power.